Do you think the coming generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are as resilient as the previous generations who endured and saved Hinduism? Welcome back to the second part of Ask Me Anything. If you haven't seen the first set of questions, I put a link below in the description. But let's get right to it. I'm going to finish off strong with the rest of the questions that you, my viewers, have asked me. Question 11, @RogueIntel asks, do you think the coming generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are as resilient as the previous generations who endured and saved Hinduism? Every other religion are converting people one way or another, and given enough time, Hinduism is going to lose if we just rest in silence. The new generation is not even interested in Dharma. Are they? I'll be honest with you, I've had moments where I've looked around and felt disappointed. The mandirs here in Canada, sometimes they're empty when you walk in. Whereas you go to a concert or you go anywhere else to the movies, it's full. I've seen young people who know more about TikTok trends than about their own arti and how to perform it. And yes, conversion is there, still running full speed. But here's the thing. The generation that survived colonialism and indenture and partition, they fought for survival. They protected Dharma with sweat and silence. But this generation, they have to protect it with their voice, through action, and through technology. Are they resilient in the same way? No, but they have the potential to be resilient in different ways. So when I see Gen Z organizing Hindu Heritage Month events, or even when I see a 12-year-old walking into school here wearing a tilak, or even a university student pushing back against a professor, calling Hinduism oppressive, I know something is shifting. And I don't think the problem is that they don't care. The problem is that we haven't showed them why doing this stuff matters. If we want Gen Z to rise and Gen Alpha to rise, then we have to stop assuming that they're lost. And we have to start building spaces where they can find themselves. It could be in stories, it could be in satsang, it could be in a strong group identity, and most of all, we have to make sure that they're comfortable speaking up. So to be honest, no, I haven't given up on this generation. I just came back from a Hindu youth conference in Houston. That's all Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They're there, they're doing it. So I think the important thing is that we need to create the spaces for this to happen. Next question. Zain Chadawala 4574 asks, what's your message to those who try to convert Hindus, whether to Christianity, Islam, or atheism? Honestly, I get very angry. And I think my anger is justified because at its core, conversion, especially when it's targeted at vulnerable communities, is predatory. It's violence. It's not about sharing wisdom or inviting someone to reflect. It's saying that your path is wrong and mine is right. And unless you join me, you're damned or you're lost or you're incomplete. And how could anyone in good conscience subscribe to that ideology that classifies the entire world into believers and non-believers? That reduces a person's worth to whether they say the right thing or follow the right book. And where's the logic in that? And more importantly, where's the humanity? Sanatan Dharma teaches us that there are many paths to this truth. Now, we don't go trying to convert others, and we don't call their gods false. We don't tell them that they're going to hell. But unfortunately, the same respect that we give other faiths, that is never returned to a Hindu. And look, if you're trying to explore another tradition freely, do it. It's a personal choice, that's one thing. But that's not what's happening in most of these cases. We're seeing well-funded campaigns that exploit poverty, trauma, and social isolation, especially when we come to the Dalit communities, to rural villages, and yes, even immigrant diasporas. Even atheism today, at least the loud, aggressive kind, has become some sort of fundamentalism. It doesn't ask questions. It mocks those who want to follow tradition. It reduces Dharma to a superstition without even attempting to understand it. So for those who are trying to convert Hindus, my message is this. My path is meaningful. I radiate it. But you don't need to tear down others. You don't need to erase others or manipulate the weak. Because maybe you should stop and ask yourself why you're doing this. If truth exists, it will find a way to make itself known. All right, time for some fun questions. Question 12, Anjanea108 asks, I'm curious about your cuisine. What dishes are staples and which ones are festive? Food shapes our minds as well as our bodies. All right, so now you're speaking my language. Food is such a big part of our identity, and especially in the Indo-Caribbean Hindu community. And it's not just what we eat, it's where we eat in satsangs and how we celebrate our birthdays and how we remember our roots. So if you look up West Indian cuisine on YouTube, you'll find classics like doubles, which are these soft fried bara filled with chana and tamarind and pepper. Trinidadians will argue that theirs is the best, and Guyanese folks will fire back with their 7 curry, which is a must-have when you go into weddings and pujas and usually served on special leaves, the lotus leaf. Now for staples, I grew up eating very simple food. Fry aloo, potato with roti. Baigan choka, which is roasted eggplant mashed with garlic and pepper. Guyanese dal, Trinidadian dal and rice, that's a staple. And always with a side of achar, whether it be mango achar or kuchala, which is the mango that you take and you grate it and you make it into a condiment. These are not fancy dishes, they're comfort food. I grew up eating chana and aloo with paratha roti. In Trinidad, it's known as basapshat because it looks like a torn shirt. These are simple things that we had growing up. And there are other dishes that we had where it's related to the melding of West food with Indian food. So macaroni pie, red beans and rice. These are all staples that came about when there's a melding of cultures. These meals that we had growing up, I remember sitting with your friends at the temple and just eating this food. And it really becomes something that you look forward to when you go to the temple. Now, when it comes to festive or ceremonial food, there's one standout. Chutney, also known as katahar from our Guyanese community. It's a type of water chestnut related to jackfruit, and it's served at weddings or religious events. And for many of us, there's no wedding where they don't serve chutney. It's something that I look forward to now. But there's something that's also important with the tradition. Food is prasad. It's sacred. It's offered before we eat it. So even when we're preparing it, you're sitting and doing something that's deeply dharmic. And it's not just for your body, but it's for your mind. And I just remember coming home and having a good home-cooked meal. And it's something that provides so much comfort that even when I go on holidays right now, I can tell you that within 1 or 2 days, I'm asking for my home food. Question 13, Rohit Ratan Sharma asks, Falori bina chutney kaise bani? Music carries meaning. What are your thoughts on that cultural overlap? If you don't know that song, I'll play it for you right now. Let's get real with this one. Music is one of the main reasons Hinduism survived in the Caribbean. Because if you think about it, our ancestors were brought over as indentured laborers. They were stripped from their homeland. They were isolated without any formal institution. So what did they have? All they had was their memory, and in that memory was music. They sang Ramayan, they sang folk songs at weddings, at birth ceremonies, at pujas. They created tan singing in Guyana, what's known as West Indian classical singing in Trinidad, and eventually this changed into chutney. So it was how Sanatan Dharma was kept alive in a place that didn't want to remember who they were. I grew up hearing these sounds, the harmonium, the dola, the voice of someone singing about Ram or Sita, not in Sanskrit but in Bhojpuri, in Caribbean Hindustani. And even now when I hear that traditional style of singing, something stirs inside me. It's like an echo of my ancestors saying, we're still here. Now I have to be honest here. Bollywood did play a big part in maintaining a Hindu identity. Whether it be Lata Mangeshkar bhajans or Amitabh Bachchan movies, Bollywood music was often the only connection that those growing up in the Caribbean had to India. And for many of my parents' generation, It helped to stay connected to the music. And yes, I know that can be problematic because we know that Bollywood largely is anti-Hindu. Now let's talk about chutney music. Its evolution is very complex. It started as a beautiful fusion of devotional, folk, and Indian classical singing, often sung by women in village settings, and over time, it moved to stage shows and carnival, and yes, into themes of rum and romance. But even then, underneath those beats, there was something sacred in that style of singing. I've mentioned old school chutney. It carries with it sometimes grief, but also a resilience, a devotion, and it tells a history. So when we talk about cultural overlap, we're talking about survival through music. And Hinduism in the Caribbean wasn't preserved just in the temples, it was preserved in our songs. And that's something that we should never underestimate. Question 14, Satsangology asks, I'm starting a Sanatan Dharma channel focused on facts and knowledge. What advice would you give to a new creator like me? First of all, welcome to the dharmic creator space. We need more voices like yours, and honestly, the fact that you're even asking this tells me you're serious about doing it right. My biggest piece of advice, don't share facts. You need to tell stories. You could list 10 facts about the Vedas or quote shlokas from the Gita, but what really sticks with people is when you explain why it matters today. Frame whatever knowledge you have in a way that connects the world to your audience, whether it be your school, your family, your identity, or even mental health. It could be their school, their family, their dharma. But we have to show people how it applies to their lives right now. I've said this before in answering another question. Show your face and use your voice. Don't be afraid to appear on camera. People don't just follow information. They follow your energy. And if they connect with you, they'll stay for the content. Don't worry about being perfect. Start with what you have. You don't need a studio or fancy gear to be authentic. Many people are posting content with just their cell phone. One video, one reel, one post. Just show up. But the important thing here now is you have to be resistant to the pushback. There's trolls on social media from people of other faiths and sadly sometimes even from your own Hindus. You need to stand firm in why you're doing it. And remember, you're part of a bigger movement of reviving knowledge, of reclaiming pride, and offering your voice in a sea full of noise. Don't feel that you are the only one that is trying to save Hinduism because that will burn you out. Do what you can with the little time that you have. And remember that you're building to help the generation that comes after you. It's important that we find our own purpose through all the noise. Question 15. Mitsock Z3U asks, what's your opinion on the Kumbh Mela? Do Western Hindus go on pilgrimages to India's major temples? Alright, so let's get into this. The Kumbh Mela, as many of you know, is one of those rare things in life that feels overwhelming and deeply spiritual both at the same time. I've seen it called the largest human gathering on earth, but it's more than just a spectacle as many in the West would like you to think. It's a reminder that Sanatan Dharma is very much alive. This collective memory that we have is still sacred to millions of us. Now, for me personally, I haven't been to India yet, and I know my time is coming. And I say that because the Kumbh isn't just a tourist stop, it's a spiritual call. And when you go, you have to be ready for something. As for Western Hindus, yes, many of us are beginning to make that journey, whether it be to Kashi or Kedarnath or Tirupati. There's many that I know that go on these tours every year. This is going to become more important for second and third generation Hindus in the diaspora because there's this desire to reconnect to the spiritual heritage of Bharat. Not just to read about it, but to walk in the same soil, to breathe the same air, and to offer prayers at the same source. We need to reclaim these spaces because they belong to us, too, the Hindus in the diaspora. Now, when am I going to India? Well, I hope sometime soon, but I want to wait for my kids to be just a little bit older because I want to document it and experience it, not just for myself, but for all of you that are watching. Question 16, Anjanaya108 asks, you mentioned calling your grandparents Aja and Aji. Where are your ancestors from? Have Caribbean Sanatanis successfully traced their roots back to India? Yes. I grew up calling my grandparents Aji and Aja. Those are my father's parents. Mother's parents we called Nani and Nana. And like many Indo-Caribbean families, my roots trace back to the eastern part of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. That's where the majority of indentured laborers were taken from in the 1800s when our ancestors were shipped to Trinidad and Guyana and Suriname and Fiji under the British system. So, most of these places were Bhojpuri speaking, places like Azamgarh and Gorakhpur and Basti and Jaunpur and parts of Bihar. These were rural, these were poor regions hit hard by famine and colonial policies where people were recruited and often deceived with promises of work and opportunity. As for tracing roots, yes, it's difficult, but some have done it. A few families I've managed to reconnect with, they've told me about going back through the shipping records and going to see where their ancestors came from. But for most of us, the trail probably went cold a long time ago. Our names were anglicized, our records were lost, and generations passed without really knowing where home was. But I'll say this, even if I don't know the exact village that my ancestors are from, there's a lot of things that we brought with us, whether it be the singing of bhajans, the Ramayan, or even saying Sitaram. These are all things that form part of our memory and our identity. And yes, we may not have been born in India, but Bharat lives within us. It lives within our mandirs and it lives within our memories. So that's why when Caribbean Sanatanis say we are descendants of Bharat, it's not just nostalgia, it's the truth. Nund3576 asks, I want to organize a Connect the Hindu Diaspora trip to the Caribbean, visiting homes and meeting local Hindu families, avoiding resorts and liquor culture. Can you recommend anyone in tourism who can help? First of all, I love this idea. A trip like this, it's meaningful for the wider Hindu diaspora about showing everyone about the Indo-Caribbean legacy that often gets left out of this mainstream Hindu discourse. And yes, there's someone I'd like to recommend. I came across him during a Kona webinar, and his platform is dedicated specifically for connecting the global Hindu diaspora. His name is Ramesh, and he runs the hindudiaspora.com, and you can check out his website here. He focuses on building cultural bridges and organizing meaningful travel experiences and creating space for Hindus to reconnect with their roots. I think a collaboration like this could be great, so let's see what we can do to get the ball rolling. Question 18. When are you coming to Bharat, bro? Alright, so I think I've answered this before, but it's something that I've been asking myself, is that when am I going? When am I going? When am I going? And truth be told, probably in the next 4 to 5 years. I want to make the trip when my kids are a little bit older so that they can remember when they made their first trip to India. And I don't want to go just to visit. I want to go and make it meaningful. I want to visit mandirs. I want to walk in the land that my ancestors walked in. So, when I do go, everyone on this channel will know. And that's a wrap. Honestly, I wasn't expecting all of these questions, but I'm glad I spent the time to answer it. This has been a marathon session for me. Most of my videos that I record are probably about 10 to 20 minutes of record time, but I've been sitting here for over an hour and a half talking to the camera. So if you've sat through all of this, I want to say thank you. You guys, my viewers on YouTube, if you've been here from the beginning, and even if you've recently stumbled across my channel, it's important to understand one thing. There are Hindus that have grown up outside of India that have maintained their heritage. Somehow. It may not have been perfect, but whatever they maintain, they're looking to pass it on to the next generation. That's why I started this channel. I want to tell the stories of everyone around the global Hindu diaspora of what they have been doing to maintain their heritage. There are three things that I focus on this challenge: education, advocacy, and history. Education is needed because a lot of us growing up, we've grown up with this colonized version of what it means to be a Hindu. And if you talk to a lot of people outside, the experience of being Hindu is really what outsider has told us what Hinduism is about. So we need to kind of decolonize all our minds and do all of that stuff and understand Hinduism from the tradition itself. The second thing is maintaining a Hindu lifestyle. We have to advocate for our Hindu rights growing up here in the West, because if we don't, we're going to be lost in the sea that is our modern day politics. And finally, Hindus have never spoken about their history. They have never spoken about the challenges that they have gone through. These are stories that get lost in translation because many of us, rightfully so, don't want to have to relive that pain. But we see what happens when we don't tell our stories. It creates a vacuum where we think that Hinduism is something that we just practice when we go to the temple. We don't know all the struggles that our ancestors went through to preserve the tradition. That's why here on Hindu Lifestyle, I try to cover all of these things. Thank you once again for being part of this journey, and I'm only getting started. I hope you subscribe, you share this video with your friends and family, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next one. Om Shanti.